So last week I made a video about animation tests, and that actually leads me to this video, which is how to deal with disappointment, rejection, not getting that job, especially when it goes for a long time. In this video, I'm going to talk about the lessons that I've learned, how do I deal with rejection, and how do I make the most of it to actually come out on the other end feeling better, stronger, more sure of myself, and also loving animation even more. I'm going to share with you in this video some of the stuff that I've learned to hopefully empower you guys to continue on that pursuit of an animation career. So let's get to it. Welcome guys. If you guys are new here, my name is Harvey Newman. I have been a games developer for nearly 20 years now, and I love animation, games development, and this industry in general. I want to share my passion and my experience with you guys to hopefully give you guys a glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes, and also, if you're interested in joining the industry, hopefully give you shortcuts and lessons that you can take with you as you pursue your career and start your journey. Now, for this week's video, I would like to talk about failure, rejection, how to deal with it. Obviously, it's not really a positive subject, is it? But needs to be talked about. So for me, my experience, I actually started in a way that it was incredibly difficult. I made a couple of videos about this, especially when the Black Lives Matter was going on. I kind of like made a very honest video about my upbringing and how I was raised and some of the difficulties that I went through. Go and check out that video. Hopefully I can actually leave a link somewhere. If you guys don't know, very humble beginnings. I was kind of raised a little bit like a foster kid, so I never really had a strong base to build my foundation about, right? So whenever you have a mother and a father that are there for you and that are badass and they just like do their job properly, it means that you have a strong foundation, right? Not everybody has that, and there's always pros and cons, and no family is perfect, but it means that you have a foundation that you can build upon. When you don't, that foundation is kind of shaky, right? But I learned to overcome my blind spots by learning from others. Now, my case is very specific because it was kind of abrupt and kind of rough, but no matter what kind of person you are, your upbringing most likely change how you see or perceive a negative outcome, right? And I say this because animation, like art, like any other thing that actually you need to dedicate yourself for years and years and years to then hopefully get somebody to hire you to actually do that job, takes a lot of dedication, takes a lot of kind of like frustration, but also most likely you'll feel like you have worked so hard for this, you need a positive outcome at the end of the tunnel. This is not necessarily true for everybody. So I actually illustrated for many years. I wanted to be a comic illustrator for the longest time, and then around my early 20s things changed and I actually wanted to be a game developer, right? But everything that I've learned through illustration actually applied to animation, so it ended up working out well. The idea of not becoming an illustrator in my early 20s was actually very frustrating, and I was sending my drawings to different studios and getting rejection letter after rejection letter until eventually I just gave up, right? And it was not for this reason that I became an animator. I actually became an animator because I really love it, but it was definitely that feeling of like not making it. And then on top of that, spending 3 years learning animation in university and then not knowing how to animate. And that was also frustrating because I fully thought once I get this degree, I'll be ready and I'm gonna apply, and there was nothing that I knew about animation, and that was frustrating because people were looking at my animations and going, this is not really right. This is not like job worthy. So I felt this small, right? Eventually I got a mentor. The mentor helped me a lot to actually get to the place that I needed to be hireable. And then I finally got my first job after 2 or 3 years of constantly applying. Through that process, there was many no's, no calls, or getting like the initial interest in animation tests, like I talked in my last video, and then getting no answer back. So after spending a week working hard on an animation test, you send that animation test back and you get nothing. You get no answer from anybody, and it's pretty bad. So all of those things have this impact on you as a person, as an individual, as an animator. They kind of make you feel diminished, small. They make you feel like you're not worthy. They make you feel like you are actually on the wrong profession, and why did you actually spend so many years working on this when you could have done something else that will be so much better. It's the equivalent, I think, it's the equivalent of having a bad relationship. When you invest so many years in a relationship and then it ends up badly, you kind of like start retracing your steps and you go like, where did it went wrong? And maybe I should have chosen someone else early on, right? I think when it comes to art, when it comes to animation, I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it. Because here's what happens. Every single person that gets into this industry, doesn't matter if it's games, film, or TV, they're all been through the same journey as you in terms of getting rejections, right? Some more than others, but all of them have been through it. The most important thing for you to think about is that this is part of the process. Instead of thinking, I am the only one going through this and I absolutely stink and I shouldn't be doing this. Because the more you actually start kind of like adding negativity to negativity, and the more you actually are in your mind, instead of thinking about this is part of the process to get there and eventually I'm going to get a chance as long as I continue to actually excel or work on my craft in becoming better slowly, right? That actually helps you a ton. So that's the first thing I can tell you, is to actually not make it personal. It's not about you, it's about your work, right? So you can do something if you make it about your work, because then you can actually make your work better. It's not you as a person, it's your work. So it's not personal. Second thing is that most companies out there, especially the bigger the company, the more this is true, they are incredibly busy, first, and second, they get a ton of submissions. So if they actually see your submission amongst a pile of other submissions and your submission doesn't stand out, most likely you're not going to get an answer. Second, whenever you actually get an answer, sometimes you get an answer from this company, let's say Blizzard, right? So you get an answer from this company because they saw something good on your show reel. So they actually ask you for an animation test, or they ask you for a few questions, or they ask you for an interview, whatever all those things that happen. If they ask you for those things, don't expect that because you got called that you're going to get the job. Never assume that you're going to get the job until you got the job, because that is the worst thing that I could do, especially in the beginning. I did that many times. Just to think that I had the job just because I got a call, right? Because no one else called me, but now this big company is calling me, so that must mean something. Instead, see it as in they saw potential in you and there was a bit of a glimmer of light on this. And if they saw potential in you and it was a big company, then other companies most likely will actually feel the same way. So you got one, you got something that you can actually hold on to. It means that you're going in the right path. But don't think that that company is going to get you the job because you just got an interview, right? Only when they actually send you that offer, at that point, then yeah, you got the job, you can discuss your offer, all that goodness. But until that happens, you really should just think that they are just interested in you and you're just talking. That's it, because the company will see it that way. There's so many questions that I have to answer in order to pick you amongst others, right? So don't think that for 1 second, because that means that you're not going to get your hopes up. And if it doesn't work out and they either don't answer anymore, or they just say, I'm sorry, you didn't get the job, yada, 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 you don't feel so bad, because just you talking with a big company and the fact that they showed interest in you means that at some point someone else will come along and be like, this is the guy for the job, right? So that's another aspect of this conundrum of getting a job, right? Based off the same kind of like idea is that companies hire at different points in the project. If you actually are in pre-development, so it's like right at the beginning when you're making ideas and stuff, the teams are very small, so it's very unlikely for the company to hire anybody. And then at the beginning of the project, they have enough people internally to develop the game and to actually kind of take the game from an idea to actually something that you can play roughly. It's more or less in between, like in the middle of the project, towards the end of the project, that companies start hiring. Now, you might be hired in the beginning like temporarily, right? So let's say you actually finally got a company that is interested in you, they hire you for 3 months or 4 months, and then you can work with them. Once again, I actually saw people, or I know people that because they got hired for only a certain amount of time, they feel bad because all of a sudden they start thinking, am I not good enough? Am I good enough just for a contract and then that's it? Especially if after the 4 months they go, we're not going to renew anymore, you can go and find another job. So now you're jobless, you got one experience, but you're jobless. Don't think about it once again as in like you're not good enough. Think about it from the perspective of like, now you got one little bit of experience that you can put on your CV. So at least you have one little bit that you can then use to then progress your career further. So as you can tell, from all these experiences, from all this chatter that I've been saying, it's all about little gains, right? As long as you can see that there's some interest in you, that is actually some kind of like win that you have, focus on that win, don't focus on the negative of it all, right? Like I had a mentor for a little bit, and for me, he came when nobody believed in me. And for me, it was like a small gain. At least somebody believes in me. So if this guy believes in me, then maybe other people will believe in me. And then I got a job, and then more people started believing in me, and then more companies started believing in me. And then you get spoiled for choice, because then you can start choosing more or less where you want to go or where you want to work in. But that comes with time. Like it took me a good 2 decades to get there. So don't rush it. It's all about the small wins and focus on the positive instead of the negative. Because if you do that, then most likely you're going to feel good about yourself. And if you feel bad at any point because you feel like you're not good enough, then focus on your skills. Because most likely your skills will be the one thing that don't have any limit, that don't have any cap. You can always be better at what you're doing. And if you don't get a job because your skills are over here, then work to actually make your skills over here to make sure that people cannot say no to you, right? You always want to be above and beyond what people expect of you, so then they have no excuse to actually hire you. And this is how I think, this is how you should think, and that way is the sure way for you to get a job anywhere you want. So keep it positive all the time, talk positively, think positively, and continue progressing in your journey, because if you make it, when you make it in this animation industry, you're gonna love it. It's awesome, and I hope you feel just like I do after so long. Before I leave, I want to give a shout out to my Patreons. Go and check out my Patreon page if you actually like to check my perks. If this video was useful to you in any ways, subscribe please if you haven't so far, drop a like, and also comment below about your experiences, negative, positive, so others can be inspired by your comments as well. That's all I have. Until next week, stay well, stay safe. Peace.